Good morning. I'm Chuck Wooldridge. I want to say it's good to be back here. It was 6, 7, 8 years ago I had a chance to come and speak when I was serving as a UUA trustee and working on growth issues with a number of very wonderful people in your congregation. So it's good to be back and to bring this beautiful story before you. Denise has told you a little bit about the history in terms of the famous sermon by Hal Davies. Claire's done a really wonderful job of talking to you about this art, but it's my job to speak a little bit about what this means to us today. And in fact, I like to think of the story of the Hiroshima children's drawings as a book that still is being written, and we are just starting to write new chapters. And as has been mentioned, once the drawings were received at All Souls Church, and it was, I think, understood somewhat what the power of those were. The drawings, there actually were 2 sets of drawings. You have one of the sets of 48. There was a second set of drawings that the State Department decided to exhibit across the country. And that set of drawings, unfortunately, never made it back to All Souls Church. So that was one that was lost, but I'd like to say perhaps was lost in a larger service to share that story. But what had happened is that over that intervening period of 1948, when the drawings were received, especially in the 90s, the mid-90s, we began at All Souls Church to have visits by the Hibakusha who were in Washington, D.C. So the Hibakusha, again, are the atomic bomb survivors. And it really was moving when we saw their reaction to these drawings. And in fact, these drawings have a meaning to them that I think we can only fathom and understand today. And there was something so, I would say, captivating about the relationship that the Japanese visitors had to those drawings, that led us to create in 2005 a committee that wanted to explore the means of how we could preserve the drawings that at this point were over 60 years old, and how those could be maintained and that story shared more broadly. So in 2008, the drawings were professionally restored, and on Sunday, April the 5th, 2009, also celebrated the exhibit of these newly restored drawings at the church. And the congregation was joined by the Japanese ambassador to the United States and the current mayor of Hiroshima. And this was part of the annual Cherry Blossom Festival. And then in 2009, we had this unique, perhaps crazy idea that perhaps we ought to take the original restored drawings back to Hiroshima. And in fact, we did. A group of 8 of us from All Souls, and I had the honor of being one of those 8, accompanied the original drawings in their restored fashion back to Hankawa Elementary School, and we met the adults, many of the adults who had been the children artists of these drawings that you see hanging around. Also, there's been a documentary film about this story, and it was undertaken by 2 friends of All Souls Church. One is Brian Reichardt, who is the director, and the producer is Shizumi Manawi. And in fact, they had already begun to make plans and begin filming for their movie when they learned of our plans to go back, to take them back to Japan. And they were actually very instrumental. Shizumi's family is from Hiroshima, and she indefatigably, tirelessly spent 2 or 3 summers going back to Japan, researching to find out where these artists lived. Of course, some of them still live in the Hiroshima area, many of them live in other places in Japan and some in the United States. So the film has actually just been completed, and in fact, in November 2013, was shown at the National Press Club. And its trailer is now available online, and I invite you to go look for the trailer. And in fact, it's under, if you go to HiroshimaSchoolyard.com, you can actually see the trailer of the film. And All Souls is working with the film producer and director to make sure that Unitarian Universalist congregations across the country have a chance to actually show the movie And we're going to provide discussion materials and ideas about children's curriculum for the use of the story. But I want to say that we asked ourselves after we got back from Hiroshima in 2010 of what does this story mean today? And members of our delegation reflected on this special and rekindled relationship, and we realized that it is now rooted in the history and the identity of our congregation, but yet we didn't know what it compels us to do today. Senior Minister Rob Hardy's shared in an open letter to our congregation while we were actually in Hiroshima. He sent a letter back that was read that Sunday, which was August 6th, which is the annual commemoration of the dropping of the bomb that takes place at the Peace Park in Hiroshima, Japan. His letter said, "This relationship brings responsibility." And so after a period of reflection and discernment, in December 2012, our congregation voted to make peace and reconciliation one of our major social justice priorities for the next 3 to 5 years. And certainly one of the strong motivations for this was the powerful experience of having connected with the Japanese people through these drawings, a connection that now spans almost 70 years. And we are now seeking to revive and extend that into future generations. A very important aspect of this work is to develop the partnerships. And during our visits to Hiroshima in 2010, and a subsequent visit that I and some made in 2012, we became very impressed at the breadth and the depth and the institutional commitment there in Hiroshima of a UUA long-term partner and Buddhist organization called Rishoko Sekai. And they are very engaged in peace activities in Japan and around the world. We were invited to a special celebration at their Dharma Center, and they honored the memory of the drawings, and from that, those encounters and the chance to actually meet with them at the UUA General Assembly, we've now developed a very wonderful partnership that I'd like to tell you a little bit about. So, we've developed something called the Heiwa Peace Exchange Program. Heiwa is the Japanese word for peace. And two key parts of this program are, in August of this year, 37 members of All Souls Church will travel to Hiroshima, and we will spend time at Hankawa Elementary School. We'll meet with the teachers, the artist survivors. We'll also have a chance for some of our children to meet the current elementary school children at Hankawa Elementary School. And we will be hosted by the Dharma Center, which looks a lot like the Unitarian versus Congregation, by the way, while we're there at home stays and basically getting to know each other in a face-to-face manner. So this is going to be a multi-generational, multicultural, interfaith peace exchange that will begin in August of 2014, and then in 2015, a reciprocal group from Hiroshima will come to Washington, D.C. for a week or two of activities. So again, I'd like to say that this Heiwa exchange program is really rooted in historic links with Japan, and that and the peace and reconciliation work that now means so much to all souls. You know, we have so many different areas of peace, of social justice work that we can do, but this has really allowed us to focus on what can we do, especially related to the story of the weapons of mass destruction and their proliferation. What can we do today in partnership with Japanese partners in Hiroshima that might make a difference? So I would like to just say I thank you so much, and just to remind you that what our congregation has learned from these wonderful drawings is that relationship brings responsibility, and that this is an incredible relationship that is based on hope as seen by children and depicted so beautifully in your sanctuary today. And I want to thank you for honoring this story, and I want to thank you for keeping this memory alive. And I do encourage you to stop and talk to Denise and myself during the reception, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. And again, thank you for having us here today to honor these pictures.